Welcome back to What Have You. I'm Rachel Jankovic.
And Becca Merkel.
Yep. So you are.
Right to our chief.
Yep, that's what we've all been up to. Just nothing. Just a whole lot of nothing.
Rachel's casually
I was trying to find
our
messages because I know I've told people lately. I've been like, "Good question. Nice. Glad you asked that." I'll try to bring that up.
Yeah.
But then I think I'm going to remember it and be able to bring it up.
I need to just say, though, that my Facebook message system is dysfunctional extremely right now because I cannot log into my Apple ID.
Oh, yeah.
And so
I guess things get rough when that happens.
Yeah, and so a message will show up on my phone, and if I click on it, it will say, you need to update Messenger, go to the App Store. But I can't go to the App Store because of that. So there are some messages where I've seen like the first, 2 lines of it, but I haven't seen anything else. And I'm unable to. Everyone, I'm having technical problems with that. It's a problem on a lot of my apps, though, because a lot of them need to be updated and they won't open. And I don't know what my silly Apple
You know what
ID
I do in times like that? Turn it all over to Luke. But like, this problem is not the kind of thing I can handle by myself. Also,
Rachel.
What?
You have a kitchen, but I'm just try and pay attention to this. I have a shelf.
Yes, I saw it. And
shelf.
It's
a cupboard.
And it looks like a shelf. It functions like a shelf.
Like a shelf.
Yeah.
It's a cupboard. There's going to be doors on part of it.
I, in turn, have a desk.
Yeah, and it's really rad.
Well,
it's really good. You should put up a picture of your desk. It's a very cool.
It's a farmhouse kitchen piece that has been with us.
Yeah,
through a lot of manifestations.
Through thick and through thin.
Yeah, we had it as our shop cash counter, the bottom, and then the upper cabinets were over the sink, and then we kept it when we moved, and it was like a craft. It was in like a craft area, and then we cut off the part of it and had it under the TV as a thing, and then it was in the foyer, and it was like separate, and we reached a point where we were like, we're either throwing it away or we're doing something new with it. And I think this is probably its last transformation into anything.
It's really cute.
I think it might run out of gas after this. It might
really
be time to quit. But I knocked a bunch of the drawer supports out of the middle so that there's a place for your legs.
It's very cool.
Painted. I'll put a picture.
Put a picture up. Yeah.
But that's actually more of a problem in my life than it should have been, which is not having the places. In a new house, what we have is a lot of space. Mm-hmm. But not always the places that you are looking for when you're like, where do I keep my pencils?
Yeah.
You're like, we don't know.
Right.
It could be anywhere.
I know.
And generally it is put somewhere that we wouldn't, that's not a good idea.
And see, I, at this point in time, have a highly specific place for my potatoes, as we all know, in my kitchen.
Becca likes highly specific places.
I can't tell you how much it thrills me to have a highly specific place.
You don't actually have to tell me because I know this of you. I actually already knew about that.
Deep down in my soul, I adore a highly specific.
In another era, Becca would have been really susceptible to the Spice Caddy.
No, you know what?
It just stresses me out about Spice Caddies. You did Spice Caddy.
What?
Didn't you do like your own special bottles?
Well, they're jars. They're big wide mouth jars.
No, but didn't you do it back when you were back in the olden days when you were newlyweds? Really?
Yeah.
Well, I always thought the Spice Caddy just fails in understanding what people want from their spices.
No. Here's the thing, though, with that. Along with liking highly specific things, I also have a terrible, terrible pull towards custom. I always want bespoke and not off the rack. And so if I had been taken up with a Spice Caddy, I guarantee you what I would have done is gone home to try to make my own highly specific custom brewed Spice Caddy.
Oh, I'm sure you would have.
I do know enough about spices in my kitchen to know that you never want to commit yourself to a fixed number of,
No.
There's no more room.
I'll tell you, a weird thing about cooking for a lot of people, more often, like doing Sabbath, the things that surprise me about that is how fast I go through things like big boxes of kosher salt.
I was just going to say that.
That used to last me forever.
Oh my gosh.
But then you think, like, well, you just go in like
I'm flying
multiply
through salt.
it by 10, and you're like, well, yeah, I guess I'm going about that fast through my salt.
Because you're often putting a half a cup in the pot of soup.
Yeah.
And so you're like...
or when you are multiplying a recipe and it ends up being like a cup and a half of chili powder or something, you're like, this is not functional. This is not the way we live.
I have a plethora of paprika varieties right now. I do
too.
I have Spanish, I have smoked, I have regular,
hot, sweet, Hungarian, Spanish.
You've got
I have
more.
them too.
You've got more than I do. I don't have any Hungarian. But the thing is I have all of these different paprikas for various large events that I cooked for. So when you have leftovers, it might be like, half a cup left over of that paprika and this paprika and the other paprika. So I know with spices that you've got to give yourself elbow room in your system.
Yeah.
But I think when it comes to things like measuring cups,
I'm on quest with that.
It's not like you're going to suddenly find out that there's a whole other branch.
Some listener of you out there might have this. And there's like a specific brand. I don't care if it floats your boat. It causes me to sin when I see this sort of thing. If you like it, bless yourself. Have it in your drawer. But like collapsible measuring cups?
No, there's no reason for that.
What the heck? And it just seems like because I've decided to live a really, really tedious life, I decided to have collapsible strainers and bowls and measuring stuff.
I can see why it might spark joy in some people, but
but then the other thing that generally, like, very few things make me actually feel angry. And yet, those pans that are designed to make all of your brownie a brownie crust, who thinks that would be fun?
Well, people who are devoted to brownie crusts.
I think it's people who think hand washing muffin tins is good fun. Because that's all I can see. Is like, I don't care if you like a crunchy brownie. The fact that you want to wash a full-on grid of metal...
Well, particularly when, at least to the muffin tin, it has the virtue of circular instead of all these little corners. Right angles.
Yeah. All I see when I see that, and actually recently I got on a really bad tangent. And if I remembered what the device was, I would tell you, but I laughed just till I was ill over this thing. It was like it's a highly specific kitchen appliance.
Okay.
That looks like a big, it sort of looks like a thermos or something. Like it's like a commuter cup, big one.
Okay.
Like you plug this thing in and it just takes.
You plug it in,
and it gets going somehow. And the advertising for it, the whole situation is appalling and funny. You crack 2 eggs in it.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah. And after some time, this cylindrical tube of egg emerges from the top. And it, like, somehow powers itself out. And once it comes out, it looks just so devious. It's like nothing is okay about it. But it just... At the end, you've plugged in this thing for 15 minutes. And at the end, you have a little log of egg.
What's it for?
To cook eggs. Apparently, while you're not looking, it'll cook you an egg. But the funnier thing is that it would, like, fall out. I don't know what it just... There is no excuse for it in my mind. But
Is it like
was,
a hard-boiled egg?
It's genuinely a little log of egg.
So it's a hard-boiled tube of egg.
No, it's not hard boiled. It's like,
But I mean, could you slice it?
It's yeah.
You could slice it and put it on a sandwich, Rach.
You could.
You could slice it and make
but why would you?
Because it would probably be a different shape of sliced egg.
And they make a big to-do about it. They make a big to-do about it. Like, it's going to be this real amazing time that's going to change your life. It's the part of me that loves a made-for-TV.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and like... This is actually a family weakness. We all quite enjoy those. There was somebody at the mall in our youth that was selling some as seen on TV things, and they had the endless loop going of the ad for something that was easier than a food processor.
Salad shooter?
No, it was one of those, like, you just put it over. It was like a chopper. Like, all you need is this little chopper that you put over the nuts and just chop, chop, chop.
Oh,
you know?
interesting.
Something like that. But the footage of somebody, like, done with that food processor, and it's like this woman staggering across the kitchen holding a food processor and like falling, like parts falling, like she's wiping out. They're like, at least you don't have to bother with falling down in your kitchen with a food processor anymore. This one is like that because it's solving a problem we didn't have.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
You know, big news.
Yeah.
Like,
cook an egg.
We're gonna make an egg cooking device that's just super weird. And it's just not at all the thing anybody needed.
Wow.
And yet somebody presented it to a board meeting. Somebody...
That's what gets you. It's like there were a lot of people who signed off on this thing.
Yeah, see? It's the Rolly. It's called the Rolly Egg Master.
Oh, my word.
And there's just nothing appropriate or acceptable about the Rolly Egg Master. The easiest, fastest way to make great... Oh! I just cannot imagine,
nothing she said prepared me for that. It's awful.
It's the worst thing that you have ever.
It looks like a sea slug.
If you hate time-consuming cleanup, and the thing is so bad, is if you gotta watch the Egg Master in action. I'll tell you, if this is what egg mastery looks like, I don't want to have it. And it has like a horrible, you know, like the worst part of a crusty, like a white that got weirdly cooked.
Oh my word, you guys! Nothing about it is not appropriate.
It's
really bad.
But the idea of thinking, finally, something that'll save me all that time, and it will emerge. Oh, goodness. Look at, how is that convenient? I mean, no. Okay. Oh, my word. Woo. I cannot tell you how much I did not expect us to be talking about that.
I feel like we might need to get like a kickback for product placement.
Oh, because you're all going to go look it up and you're going to be as horrified.
My word.
As horrified as I was.
You guys.
In one of the videos that I saw, it took someone like 15 minutes to get to that. Like, you're sitting around waiting.
Wow.
At the end of 15 minutes, up rises the horrible egg tube.
You know what, Rachel? I think here's what's going to happen is we're going to unleash this podcast into the world, and it's going to turn out that one of our listeners was the inventor of that.
Bless your heart if you are. I'm sorry we gave you this unvarnished feedback.
Wow.
Okay.
Woo.
changing the subject from that, very edifying.
Oh, man.
Why did I think of that?
I don't know why.
Okay, here's the...
Oh,
Wow.
just because I like a highly specific cabinet doesn't mean I'm into that.
I never thought you would be.
Oh, boy.
Was it your cabinets that reminded me of that? Surely not.
Yeah, I think that's how you got there. I think this was all an unflattering metaphor
No,
for
it
my
was-
one shelf.
it
I have
wasn't.
one shelf and
It
she makes
wasn't.
fun of...
Oh, I do not. Okay, let's
It's a really
see.
good shelf. You could mock me all
Okay.
day if you want. I
I'm
love
gonna try
it.
to turn this pig around just to talk about something
Okay,
more.
all right, you do it.
Woo!
You do it.
Question we were asked, more spiritually
Okay,
minded
all
than
right.
this discussion. Okay. I would love to hear y'all discuss thoughts on reconciling the whole you gotta have boundaries in your life thing regarding hard things and people with Christ's commands in Matthew 5:38 through 48. Of course, my flesh wants to put boundaries up and avoid hard people and things for my sanity as a young mom and foster mom, but that principle seems irreconcilable with this passage of scripture. As I read it again, thanks Bible Reading Challenge. So, Matthew 5:38. I should look it up to know what passage we're
Before you
specifically.
speak hardcore about it.
I noticed off topic while I looked this up this morning. I was so struck by that every time Jesus is saying, "Is it lawful for me to do something like this?" that how actually, in the only way ever, it was lawful. Like Jesus was actually fulfilling the law in doing the things that when he's asking the Pharisees who are like, oh no, he's not saying like, is this allowed? It's like, is this lawful? Like, is this consistent with the law? You know,
Right.
and they're like, definitely not. We're totally going to catch you. But he's like, in the very same moments, he's actually, okay, it's the going the second mile, eye for eye, tooth for tooth.
Yeah.
Turn the other cheek, loving your enemies.
Yeah.
That whole section. So
I think the key, don't you, is to realize on the one hand, you're finite. So you can't do everything. There are fixed limits and fixed boundaries. And on the other hand, don't be a wuss. You know?
Yeah.
Like, so obviously there's going to be limits, boundaries, and things that you cannot get. You can't do everything. You can't be, you know, invested in every single person the same amount and every single. So I think it's a matter of like, what are your duties? Like, who are the people God has put in front of you? And what are your duties towards them? And then not being a big weenie about it.
I think that maybe it's defining your, I mean, I haven't thought about this until this moment. So, but it's sort of like defining your life not by what you're saying no to, but by how you're being obedient, which is like, for instance, say you have a needy person that is in your life all of a sudden, that God brings a real needy person that maybe would be a kind of person people would think you need good boundaries with that person.
Okay.
Well, the boundaries are not boundaries of you saying, no, I will not. It's boundaries of you doing what you're called to do, meaning you may not let some random person come into your life and completely overtake your duties to your children or to your husband or to your, like you actually are still to be defined by the obedience of what you're doing. And of course, reaching out to other people it's just not the same thing as doing what they tell you to do. Right?
Yes.
That being kind towards someone who's sinning against you or turning the other cheek or whatever is not the same thing as obeying them.
And there are some people who will try to suck all the oxygen out of the room, and they will try to get you to devote all your time and energy to them. And there are, for all of the stupid advice about cutting out toxic people and
there's a reason why everyone feels like they need the advice about it.
Yeah, but the thing is you have to be gracious, but there's lots of times where you have to say, I'm sorry, no, I can't do that.
Yep.
I can't
Or
drop.
I won't
do that. I'm not going to drop everything that I have to do for my kids today. Just
or
so
sometimes you might need to be like, you know what? I can't take your kids today. I'm going to pray for you right now, though.
Totally.
Like,
Yeah.
no, I can't because I actually have other fish frying. Like,
No, it's
this
like
is
you
not...
do, it's a sort of a triage thing, because it's like you do have specific duties and you have things that God has put in front of you. And I think it's obviously always a wisdom thing. Sometimes, of course, you drop the everyday humdrum to help the extraordinary need.
No, sometimes it's just so clear that it's like God is saying, never mind. You know, like you can tell that if you had a dry erase calendar of all your goals and plans for the day, it's the Lord who just erased it.
Right.
Just
And if
said,
you say, no, I
else.
cannot help you because I have to vacuum the lampshades because that's on my to-do list.
It's on my sketch, and I'm getting a manicure, and then I'm going to do, you know,
or it's just my own little petty list of things and I won't drop it. Then you're not understanding the weightier matters of the law. But then there's also the person who is going to take all of everything that you would give and more, and you can't let them take you away from what is the weightier matter. So
right, and that is but that often is the people who are taking up all of the air in the room, or really want every bit of attention, and it's never enough from you. People like that are almost always the temptation is for people to think they're being kind to them when they're doing what they're told.
Right.
But that is actually not the way of kindness. And I'm sure I've said this on the podcast before now, because I feel like it makes me laugh because I'm not into all of the junk about toxic people and cutting them out and all this. But the reason I'm not into it is not because I don't believe there are people in the world who are problems. It's because in those memes and in all that discussion, it's the whole God of the system is just you and your feelings. So it's always the other people who are toxic people. Like, it's never that my own behavior could have been toxic. It's always that the measure of whether someone is bad or not is how I feel about them. Like, if I don't feel empowered. But the reality is, how much of the time that advice is used by Christians who are in sin to try to get rid of the toxic Christians who are telling them to knock it off with, you know, whatever. And also, but what I was going to say is, I'm not into all of the jargon lately, but boundaries is something that I have always felt incredibly strongly on, that you need to be good with having boundaries, good with enforcing boundaries.
You know what, though? They just need to be
godly.
God's boundaries and not your own little petty vindictive boundaries, because like the Bible
who's endorsing boundaries right now says a real good boundary is what your husband wants you doing, because that's not a popular boundary. No, that's the one that I was like, ignore that dumb fence, that dumb thing. We didn't like that boundary.
But see, like, your distinction about being kind to somebody is not the same thing as doing what they say to do. And I know that years ago there was a sort of acquaintance who was in the midst of burning down her life, that I was saying, don't do that. Don't do that. It's going to be bad. Don't do that. You really need not to do that. And then as she proceeded to do that, she told me that she was setting up boundaries and that I wasn't allowed to talk to her about that anymore. That she just wanted me to be a friend who would support her and not be making her feel bad about herself. And I said, well, here's the thing. I'm not going to do that, because I am happy to talk to you and continue to slog through this with you, but I'm not going to shut up about
you're not the boss. You're not actually the boss of how I support you. Right now I'm supporting you by saying heck no.
But because as you're stomping around your house pouring gasoline on everything and whittling some kindling,
true love
over
from a friend is not supporting.
And now you're playing with the matches. I am not going to stand here and just say, you know what you need right now, you just need me to support you. It's like, no. And so the thing is that one, it didn't end well, because but the thing is I didn't cut her off, but I did say,
but
I did
if
say,
you're
here's
enforcing
how
God's boundaries, they will cut you off, because
and that's what happened. So it was kind of like, I will slog through this with you for a lot further than this. but
Yeah.
I am not going to do it in the way that you want me to do it.
And the good thing is that you're also, in that kind of context, you are not saying, I won't do this because it's not good for my health. It's like, no, I'm actually doing the harder part of being here because I believe God called me here to tell you this is not how you do it. And one other thing about that I think is important is that when you get, like, I think a lot of times Christian women are just incredible optimists and naive and not cynical about one another. And
that's true.
What I mean by that is,
or
everybody has this
ugly
idea. Yeah, everybody has this idea that friendship is just like a happy collaboration that does not, that like you just meet someone and we just hit it off and we just never had to like work through some things. And I think it's just really good advice from. It's actually our great grandma who would say, whenever you are in a new place, get to know everyone. Like, just get to know a lot of people before choosing your friends. Like, do not rush into dear friendships with people because she also was available to go to coffee sometime and was like, hey, we should get together. And you're like, yes, at last, finally, my bestie, we're going to go to coffee and our kids are going to hang out. And all of a sudden I'm going to have this expectation that we're like-minded or that we actually want the same things. And so I would always make a point, like, years ago, somebody was wanting to get together and I just knew it was like let's get together to have our friends play together or whatever. Our
friends play together.
Did I say our friends? Our kids. They are our friends in a way, but our kids play together. I was going to say, if you have access to community, if there's community around you, use community to not get overly specific immediately. Do not hone in on, yes, the two of us, let's start meeting a couple times a week to do things, and but I would say, let's meet at the park, and I invited other people to come to the park also.
Because you don't want to get herded into something and then you find yourself standing in a place you really never meant to stand.
No, and then they're like, and another thing that we talk about with our...
and don't do that with your commitments either, because the thing is, I think especially in church contexts, you can find yourself now...
signing up for everything.
Yeah, and you're signing up for everything.
And then resenting it because it was actually not a good choice for you. It was not wise.
Or you're guilted into it by ladies who are either aggressively or passive aggressively guilting you.
Yeah, and I think sometimes on this podcast we talk all the time about we are not advocates for choosing less to do or being like, this is the year when I say no to everyone but me, or this is when I'm not going to lay my life down. But be thoughtful about where you're laying your life down. 100%. I do not. I think I probably have no involvement in about 40% of the service opportunities that I receive. Maybe more. I mean, even the genre of things that I'm hardly ever doing.
So the thing is, but
I don't feel bad about that. I don't need to be doing all of it. I need to be faithfully doing what is right in front of me.
I think if you're working hard and doing the things in front of you diligently, then don't let yourself get into a guilt slog over the things that you...
And I actually want to say something. Here's where this is a problem with women. So this is like a two-way street. Don't be this woman and don't give in to this woman. Both.
Okay. All right.
When women do something, women oftentimes in church communities, in Christian communities, it is small work that we have confidence is building the kingdom, right? So you're like, I need to make a meal for someone, and you have to, women often encourage themselves, rightly, this is not a wrong thing, we encourage ourselves with the big picture, right? So we say things like, me doing this for my children is really meaningful because of this, or making meals for people is really meaningful because this is my role in the body and it's really important, and it's good to know why you're doing something, but it's really bad to inflate what you're doing as the only doing that there is, and then guilt other people like do you not value the body of Christ that you have not been making meals for others, or because you've been working so hard to see the value in what you're doing, being really harsh and critical of people who are not called to do the same things that,
and remembering that your life does go through different phases. So like right now, I am not on the meal train of taking people meals. I feed a lot of people meals, and that's kind of using up all of the energy in this particular moment. But I'm not always going to be cooking every night for everyone. Yeah. I'm not necessarily, who knows what my life is going to be like in a year or two, and then maybe I will be like, yes, I really need to start signing up to take people meals. But right now, it doesn't fit. And I am not going to kick myself about that. And it's like, there's just lots of, honestly, sometimes we're in a phase right now where we're doing big hospitality a lot, which means that there is no time for the small hospitality of we're just going to have that couple over and this couple over and that, and I think that there have been other times in our marriage where that was the phase we were in, and we might hit that again. But right now, this is what we're doing.
Well, there was a phase where I saw friends and talked with people because we would take the kids to the park. I would walk to the park to have the kids play, see friends, talk with people there. That always backfired. I always thought by the time we walked back home that the kids would be tired for a nap. But what happened is I would get back home and they'd all be well rested from their stroller ride home, and I'd be fried. But anyways, the point is that would be really weird of me now to have that much time, to regularly in the mornings just be I'll be around for an hour and a half to visit with anyone else who might want to be around for an hour and a half. But it made perfect sense in that phase of life, and now I have nothing like that. Which I think just goes back to the twin boundaries you are finite. You can't fit it all in. You can't do all the things at all the times. So there's that. But also don't be a wimp. And I would say
push yourself and make the most of it. And I do think if you're feeling guilty about something, let's say you're feeling guilty that you're not volunteering in the nursery at church or something, and you feel like you really should be, I would just say you really should pray about that and ask God to show you whether that's true guilt or false guilt.
Don't just pray about it. Do pray about it, but also ask your husband. Because if your husband says, no, remember I told you I don't want you to be in the nursery right now, then you've had a word from the Lord via your husband, but this is not your time for that.
Pray about it, because maybe you're being a wimp. Maybe you are. Maybe you need to stretch yourself a little bit more. Maybe you need to take on a few other things. Or maybe you need to just decide, you know what, it's fine, and I'm not going to feel guilty about that at all.
Yeah, and that service and loving other people in the church, etc., is not a competition. We are not competing with the other saints.
No.
Actually, I like how I say that, but then isn't that actually a passage about outdo one another in love and good works or something? Yeah. But it's not talking about the competition.
No, not like that. But it's also, I think
maybe outdoing one another to show honor, right?
When you are comparing yourself to what the other women are getting done, it's this kind of false, I don't know. It's we have this false idea of what's actually going on, because when you are running 100-yard dash, everybody starts on the line right next to each other. The gun goes off at the same time for everyone. Everyone runs and everyone gets to the same finish line. But this is more like God has each of us on our very own cross-country trail. And you started in one place, they started in another place, and you are going different So
Right.
so it would be as if both of you met up for one stretch of road that was 100 yards long, and you're trying to compare yourself to them.
Yeah.
You don't have the information
You don't have the data.
to compare yourself to them. You
Yeah.
don't know if you're making better time or if they're making better time. You don't know if you have to run longer or they have to run
Or
longer.
on the other
you
hand,
don't know.
we don't even know what the time is, like that,
No.
like what the time means. That's one thing. This is a thing that I've been doing these posts on Instagram about friendship, and I said that already. One of the things, though, that I keep wanting to talk about, and all these things about who gives more and who takes more, and who I contributed more to this friendship than she did. Well, who's measuring, and by what standard are you measuring? Because the thing I think is so funny is, in a real Christian view of friendship, I'm giving you guys a little preview of the post I meant to write today that I haven't done yet. But in a Christian view of friendship, you're being obedient to God, and your friendship is kind of incidental along the way.
But also, when you're talking about it in those terms, it's weird because it's like, are you both trying to buy each other's friendship?
Yes, but this is what I was going to say, is that if your friendship is camaraderie that's incidental to service to God,
Right.
the gifts we can receive through each other have nothing to do with what we gave.
Right.
And so, for instance, say you had a real provoking friend that through the friendship with them, you were greatly sanctified. Like, does anyone add that up as giving and receiving? Like, do you know, like, say that there's someone who is hard.
He brought the temptation, and I brought the sanctification.
But it's like, but the reality is the whole thing is from God. If a person is in your life and you're dealing with the trials and the troubles therein, and that through the years you grow to really have true Christian love and affection for a person that has aggravated you a lot, you have received much from the Lord through that means. But it's not because they contributed more to the friendship than you did. It's because God blessed you,
Right.
both of you.
Right.
And it just makes it, it's like, what are people calculating? Like, who bought the drinks when? Or what is it that you think
Who
you're
texted
measuring?
Who more? Who complimented
who's the
more?
person who said, I'm here for you more times this last year? Well, then that person gave more to the friendship. To me it's really funny. But part of it is this idea that you can actually calculate, and or for instance, I have a friend who there have been different phases of our friendship where the friendship has been sort of a counseling friendship. We are good friends, but it has been working through and counseling on some issue, working through whatever. And every once in a while she would feel like, why though? Like, this is unequal. If that makes sense. Like, if you don't want to hang out with someone that you have to counsel on this issue or talk about this issue. And the thing that has just been funny to me is that I don't feel that way about the friendship, because I actually think that God just made people differently, and I am always really encouraged by her. I am encouraged by her growth, by her willingness to learn. Like it is not, I am not giving, we are both receiving in that, if that makes sense. And so then it just seems like you can't calculate that. You can't, and you shouldn't try, lest you be really tedious. Like, well, what was there in this podcast, Beck? Which one of us gave more to the other? I mean, let's calculate
I'm winning, I think. For sure.
We need to get like a full graph of like who made the other one laugh more.
No, it's just it's like attaching strange, arbitrary price tags to things, and then whipping out a calculator and then also doing the math wrong. Like, and the whole thing doesn't work.
Nothing adds up here. But all the time everyone's like.
But I do think, though, that there is a lot to be said.
Also,
in
some kind of
scripture about profitable friendships. And
but it's
so you do have to weigh it, and you do have to assess it. But I don't think you assess it in those categories,
but like this,
the way the world wants us
this
to.
meme, if you allow people to make more withdrawals than deposits in your life, you will be out of balance and in the negative when know when to close the account. That's an example of like, since when have you been a bank account? Since when are people withdrawing? How does that actually add up? Like, it just doesn't. You know, it's like you're just making up things that people feel is good because they don't want to deal with someone that feels difficult.
But at the same time, it's not like you have to be friends with everyone who fussily demands it. You know, God doesn't ask that of us.
No, and a thing that I've seen lots of times that I think is an important thing to not do and to keep your kids from doing is you want to be kind to everyone. You do not want to get in some kind of a guilt-motivated fever to go after someone and be their friend when you really are not going to be able to maintain that.
Actually, I've seen that be more cruel, actually, than...
It's way more cruel, because it's like taking...
cruel out of such good intentions of, like, somebody spotting a sort of a straggler and being like, oh, we need to reach out, we need to bring them in, and we're going to invite her to everything.
It's like Emma without the happy ending.
Yes, because
it's like, I'm going to drag this person in and be like, you're my bestie, but you're not really. I'm just doing this because I'm
bored,
or I wanted an outreach,
or to make yourself feel kind of spiritual and giving. And the thing is I have seen the people who are kind of the stragglers get like being brought into the circle is so meaningful,
exhilarating,
but it was never a maintainable thing that was going on, and then they get dropped, and that is crushing to somebody like that. And it honestly would have been better not to have pumped up all these false hopes of now we're best friends and then have it go sour.
Right, and that's part of the thing that what I was saying. You want to get to know lots of people and let friendships grow at a natural pace and that is sustainable for all people involved.
And I think it's just you're to be friendly to everyone.
Oh, yeah. And kind and loving everyone and charitable. I think another thing that is not talked about enough is that good, healthy, God-honoring friendships come and go. And,
they do.
And without sin. Without it being a problem that they came and they went. And sometimes it's through really literal coming and going. Sometimes someone moves away, or you lose touch, or you're in different phases of life, so you no longer have that in common, or you don't see each other at that regular drop-off point where you always used to laugh about what you come and go, and that doesn't mean anything. And to be clutching wildly at someone who their faithfulness to God is taking them somewhere else, and to be like, no, we will maintain this. Sometimes I have thought, like, when I've had a dear friend move away, and even though there's no falling apart, they move away, and you're just not in the same place anymore, and you can't know everything about each other's lives because you would have to be doing that full time. You would have to be like all the time telling each other what's happening.
Right.
One of the things that I've seen is that I think to try to cling to that is to be closed off to the people who actually are physically near you that you need to befriend, right? Like, so it's like God keeps that, he keeps us on our toes, because you might be, this is a godly friend, this is a great friendship, and then something, the races part, someone's got to go to a different direction.
I think also contentment is so integral to this whole thing too, because how many people don't have a good friend, they wish they did,
and they look longingly at every other friendly encounter.
And so it's like God might have you in a stretch of desert right now, and your job is to thank him and keep moving forward.
And he is enough, whether or not other friends come into view soon.
Right. And so none of us are ever in the perfect spot. Right? There's always trials and hardships wherever we are this side of glory, right? So it's always easier to lament the pain that you can feel versus the perceived pain that she has, but it just doesn't seem like it really hurts as much as mine hurts. And you know what I mean? And that's just the thing of, because you're experiencing it, it does feel quite a bit more painful.
Feel more important
than the person across the room, and you're like, I would trade trials with her any day.
A good example of this is when your kids like have a cold or something, and you're like, but you can't fuss. You need to be,
tough it
whatever.
out.
Then you get the same cold, and you're like, oh my word.
Yeah.
Like when it's like, was your head wobbling around like this all day? Like, oh my word.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, when you feel it, it's a different experience.
Right.
And I think it's just so easy to think that other people have some kind of completely satisfying friend balance that they left you out of. But
well, or I think about this too, because like, okay, so let's say you have money troubles because you can't make ends meet, and you look across the way at that extraordinarily wealthy person, and you're like, what trouble could you ever possibly have? With money.
You don't even know trouble.
It's like, oh really? Do you think that a wealthy person experiences no trials because everyone who tries to befriend them, it turns out it's because they want a business loan, because everybody's trying to hit them up for donations all the time.
No, and with extraordinary blessing comes responsibility that's really heavy.
Where, like, actually, you have to, like, you're going to give this money away.
And people around
it could crush someone if you gave them this money. It could destroy them. Like there's a huge amount of responsibility and genuine trials that come with that. But, of course, since we aren't experiencing those particular ones, we think that just seems ridiculous.
Yeah, I know. Nobody has that trouble.
Right, and I think that with friendship, it's the same. Like, you feel like you don't have friends, and that's your particular trial. And then look at little Miss Popular over there.
Or you feel like in your little group of friends, they don't need you as much, or your two friends are gravitating more to each other and cutting you out, or this. And the reality is that just keep your own head on your own path and your own obedience, and give it to God, and be content, and don't
keep yourself busy and give.
Yes, and do not calculate. Do not be a great calculator of everything and what people owe you and when they didn't notice you and why they didn't say the nice thing when you felt like they should have.
And then let's say that somebody genuinely is real rude, because that happens. It's not like, first there's the imagined insults, but then there's people who are just insulting.
Or it could be they're just actual insult.
They're just real rude and insulting. Well, then that Matthew passage, was it Matthew that you were reading? We know how to handle that. Turn the other cheek. If they're real ugly about you, well, pray for them and bless them, and you keep on going.
And you just keep on trucking.
Yeah, and don't, and if that's the case with direct insults, how much more with perceived ones?
Yes. And I was going to say, if you have people in your own circles that you feel like are not having any trials, like, that you should just start praying for them, because they certainly are having some. Like, that heart that wants to be like, I'm somehow the only person here experiencing a true trial, is a really narrow-minded way to live your life.
But at the same time, I am not trying to say that everybody's painful experiences turn out to be equal in the end. I know that there are people who go through things that I'm never going to experience anything. Well, I pray I'm never going to. I haven't yet experienced anything that hard. But that's, God is telling his own story with each of us. So I'm not saying that it's all going to pan out in the wash.
Who's that comedian with the 4 wisdom tooth story or whatever?
4 wisdom tooth tail.
In that kind of instance, the thing is that the one person that we all have in common is Christ. And he went through what none of us can imagine, what no human can imagine, because he did that for us, and that's what he accomplished. And so the reality is that all of us can't imagine the hardest thing that there ever was to do, and that was done for all of us. And it just seems like it ill beseems us to be trying to rank ourselves in this life, like who's got it more.
And I don't want, there's this kind of this ancient Greek approach that comes out in the tragedies a lot, which is never call a man happy until he's dead. And that's not what I'm trying to say here. Like, for them, it's
Becca,
like...
you definitely
it's sort of like...
that.
But it's like you don't know what's lurking around the corner.
The fates might be coming to get
You might be the happiest guy in the world, and then it will turn out that you married your mother and you murdered your father, and your children...
Why'd you have to do that,
Your children
Oedipus?
are incestuous offspring. So, you know, like, the Greeks had this thing of, like, never say anybody's happy, because something might be lurking around the corner and it's going to cream you and wipe you out. I'm not trying to say this sort of like, in the end, you know, everyone has trials and they're all horrible, and never call a man happy because he's probably got some terrible thing. It's not that. It's just that,
This is the episode where Becca has revealed herself to be a fatalist.
Yeah, that one. But I'm just saying, you don't actually have the data to assess how happy somebody else is. So when you feel personally affronted at their success, or at their happiness, or at their lack of trial, or at their apparent perfect life,
or their money,
you don't have the data. They might have a much better life than you. It's possible.
On that strong note. On that
But I'm just saying,
ending.
you don't know that they do.
You don't know.
You
Stop
don't know.
acting like you know.
Just stop putting price tags on everything.
I think that's the key right there, is that we're all doing, like, you are where you need to be to glorify God. And they are
And
where they
actually,
need to be.
You have everything you need to glorify God.
Yeah, I always think it's funny. It's like, you know, sometimes people, like, that desire to pray, like, Lord, take this trial away from me, instead of, Lord, make us stronger to carry this. Like,
although Christ did pray that prayer, so.
I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm just saying sometimes it's like, Lord, make our life less busy, or Lord, make us less needed, or Lord, you know, whatever your temptation is. Sometimes, of course, it's okay to say, Lord, please take this from us. But on the other hand, there is an element of asking God to provide what you need to glorify Him in it.
Yeah.
And that is the same way you could spend your time being like, Lord, please provide me a friend, so that someone would encourage me. Lord, please bring someone along. There's nothing sinful about that prayer, but you want to be praying, also willing to pray the other direction, which is, Lord, equip me to do this. Like, provide everything that I need, even if that's not a friend, even if it's just, you know, your word and a pioneering spirit.
Right.
All right. Well, I need to pick up my kids, so we actually need
I do too. So do you have a tip?
My tip is to not kill your Christmas tree like we did. So today I was Googling self-watering Christmas tree stands for next year.
I have a really good idea about this. Have I told you my good idea? I have an invention, you guys.
What is it?
Well, every year I resolve that I'm going to really water the tree, but I don't.
It's hard to remember.
I just don't. And
what's
it
wrong?
just doesn't
What goes
happen.
wrong in my life is how many days pass when it still feels like it was just we just did that.
I know. But here's my good idea. Everyone, if you invent this and patent it, send me a kickback here. Okay, here's my idea. You know, everybody's always putting those little angel horns out as little ornaments. You know, like the bugly. It's a thing at Christmas decor. Horns, little brass horns.
So you're just gonna stick a horn funnel in to water the trees?
No. Horn funnel or a horn ornament, but you have like the surgical tubing sort of stuff. You could just run it down the trunk into the thing, and then you could do
the horn ornament is a component that I had not heard before.
Yeah, it's a good idea, you guys. You could just have a little brass horn, and you could pour your little pitcher of water down into it, and it could be right at eye level there. You don't have to army crawl through the bushes to get to the very prickly
it just
endeavor.
The whole situation does not appeal to me of watering the tree. So
no, me neither.
I hold off. I hope to tell other people to do it all the time.
Okay.
Fail. Yeah, that's the best tip I have right now. Becca's, my tip is try to not kill my tree next Christmas. Becca's tip is patent her new bugle.
I don't have any horn ornaments, or I would have tried this.
The real problem is that you'd have to take the mouthpiece off, or you'd be stretching surgical tubing around the mouthpiece
there
of a
may
bugle.
Be something to work on.
And you could just zip tie
I'm not talking
in some
about
surgical
a real
tubing.
bugle. I'm talking about a small ornamental
Yeah, but
one. It just couldn't be. I saw one at Goodwill, and I was like, should I try it? And I was like, no, because this one was one of those ones that curls in the middle.
Yeah, that's what I would picture. You'd want a straight trumpet.
You need it to be.
And then you need to, guys, we've got it all solved. Surgical tubing, you'd have to just make sure it was hooking up real clear,
it's clean,
to the trumpet.
Clean,
I'm in.
sort of seam there.
I did see some when I was looking that are like, it's like basically like hanging an IV bag in your
Oh
tree
my word!
somewhere.
See, that's gross. Just
I
put a
thought
little
so too.
put a little bugle, and you'll be set.
I already did my tip about getting the easy egg bite extruder.
You guys, if you Google it, you'll scream. And I hope that you didn't invent it. I do, because we were real rude.
Well, because it's see, the part of the problem is there are just a lot of like
videos
wonder. Titled things like "We tried making horrifying egg tubes."
The thing is, like,
everybody knows this was not a good idea.
Who saw the need for that and felt like they knew the answer?
Like, if only I could just do that. That would just solve everything.
All right, guys.
Till next time, cook your eggs the normal way. Bye.